Welcome to Michigan in Focus, powered by thecentersquare.com. This episode features a piece by Center Square, Michigan reporter Scott McClellan. Headline, quote, DOJ Enbridge has trespassed for more than 10 years, end quote. Here's the story. The Department of Justice has weighed into the Line 5 pipeline dispute, saying Enbridge Energy has been trespassing for more than 10 years. The 70-page brief filed in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals says about 12 miles of Line 5 crosses the reservation of the Bad River Band in northern Wisconsin. The 645-mile pipeline stretching from Superior, Wisconsin to Sarnia, Canada pumps about 540,000 gallons of hydrocarbons daily across the lakebed of Lake Michigan. The pipeline transports light crude oil, light synthetic crude, and natural gas liquids that heat homes, businesses, and fuel vehicles. Line 5 supplies 65% of propane demand in the Upper Peninsula and 55% of Michigan's statewide propane needs. The brief says, quote, the operation of that pipeline has implications for the trade and diplomatic relationships between the two countries, as well as economic and energy supply implications, end quote. The DOJ said, quote, the district court failed to adequately assess all of the public interests in crafting its injunctive relief or to adequately weigh them in light of all the circumstances and equities, end quote. The brief said the district court's quote, unquote, extreme discounting of Enbridge's avoided costs was not justified. Enbridge said it's working on an amicable solution to recognize the sovereign land and provide, quote, vital energy that millions of people rely on every day throughout the Great Lakes region, end quote. Enbridge said in a statement, quote, shutting down Line 5 before relocating the pipeline outside of the reservation would violate the 1977 Transit Pipeline Treaty between the U.S. and Canada. The government of Canada has made its position clear. Such a shutdown is not in the public interest, as it would negatively impact businesses, communities, and millions of individuals who depend on Line 5 for energy in both the U.S. and Canada, end quote. The company said it's working to relocate the Line 5 pipeline off the Bad River Reservation. Enbridge said in 1992, the Bad River Band and Enbridge signed an agreement that the pipeline could remain on the reservation through 2043. The company said, quote, Enbridge does not intend for operations to remain on the Bad River Reservation a moment longer than it takes to relocate the segment of Line 5 around the reservation, end quote. Chairman Robert Blanchard of the Bad River Band welcomed part of the ruling but said they are disappointed the U.S. hasn't called for an immediate end to the ongoing trespass. Blanchard said in his statement, quote, we are grateful the U.S. urged the court not to let Enbridge profit from its unlawful trespass, but we are disappointed that the U.S. has not unequivocally called for an immediate end to Enbridge's ongoing trespass as justice and the law demand, end quote. Blanchard said they disagreed with, quote, the government's 11th hour assertion that the courts do not also have the authority to protect our reservation against an imminent rupture of the pipeline, end quote. Blanchard continued, quote, Line 5 remains an urgent threat, not only to the band's fishing and gathering, but also to the health and welfare of our people and our neighbors, end quote. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. This podcast was made with the assistance of AI technology. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation is bringing you straight news journalism through the Center Square, reporting on state authorities and publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. By supporting the Center Square, you can track politicians' use of taxpayer money and demand transparency from elected officials. This is how we can equip everyday Americans to hold their government accountable. Become a supporter of Franklin today at franklinnews.org/donate.